If protectionism is on the rise in this region against China, who would you say are going to be the biggest winners and losers?
Well, the biggest loser in a sense will be Chinese producers, but I think there are ways out for China as well, because the margins, for instance, in the EV sector that we are talking about of Chinese players is quite large, so it's a profit margin squeeze. But in terms of the winners and what we've observed from the supply chain relocation strategy, it's India and Malaysia actually top two. Vietnam has been doing well for quite some time, but we think these two countries will stand out.
Does the BYD story, as it applies to Thailand and attracting manufacturing from China to mitigate the risk, does that have legs, and is that an FDI story that will sustain the economy moving forward?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that are going on here. One is, U.S. is looking at the third countries that China is using to, go bypass the trade tariffs, which is one reason China is moving away from exporting intermediate products to Southeast Asia, which then export to the U.S., to actually setting up factories in Southeast Asia, which is why actually you've seen a significant pickup in Chinese outward direct investment into the ASEAN bloc. And second, I would say, is more a domestic pull factor when it comes to Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, and in fact even India. So China has not set up new factories in India, but India imports a lot of components and parts from China. What these countries need, though, is to build their domestic ecosystem. They need the domestic manufacturing sector to pick up. They want the domestic jobs to pick up. That will not happen if you're going to be importing everything, which is why you're seeing this big push towards, come produce on the ground so that there's more domestic value addition for these countries.
Right. So now I want to get into the tariffs in just a little bit, but I'm very curious because we're starting to see tariffication perhaps normalized at the moment, and then many people are becoming more okay actually with with imposing tariffs to protect their domestic industries. But, it's been 20 years since my last macroeconomics class. It seems to go against everything, against what we talk about economic efficiencies, and it seems that it goes with. I'm just curious, because you've probably forgotten more about economics than I've ever learned. As a chief economist, does this sit well with you? The fact that tariffication in this region is becoming more normalized, perhaps more accepted, and perhaps, despite it perhaps going against what's accepted with regards to economic inefficiencies that come from tariffications and quotas.
No, absolutely. Everything you said is what we've read and will still read actually in the books going forward. That tariffs are bad in terms of inefficiency, adds to cost. Unfortunately, we don't live in the simple world that textbooks talk about. Deglobalization is ongoing. Countries are trying to protect their turf. The world environment in which Japan, Korea, Singapore took off is a very different world today. So when we're talking about these new countries that are becoming a part of the supply chain, they are trying to grow their export market in a world which is closing up. And in a world where China is such a big player. If you look back at the last 60, 70 years, there has never been a country so large in size, present.